Spartans! What is your profession?
It's podcasting, right?
Podcasting.
Yeah, it's podcasting. Podcasting.
I always wanted to be a podcaster.
Yeah.
Instead, I'm just going to die at the gates of hell.
Take shoulder to hip. That is how deep your voice needs to go when you podcast.
Damn. All right, buddy.
Gravitas.
It's not 298. It's not 299. Kyle?
It's 300.
I didn't ask the question. Kyle,
Oh, I'm sorry.
Come on,
I'm sorry.
Kyle, what are we talking about this week?
We're talking about madness.
This isn't madness.
It's madness.
This is History According to Hollywood.
Yes.
Welcome
and today
back,
we're
everybody.
talking about 300.
Our most disjointed intro of all time.
Oh, yeah.
Surely one of those jokes landed.
Probably not. It's okay.
Oh, well.
Yeah, whatever.
So, Kyle, this is 300. Do you remember the first time you ever watched 300?
I do, and I found it a lot better than this time.
Not gonna lie, I did too. I loved this movie. When I first saw it, I watched it on TV, so the good stuff was edited out.
Mm-hmm.
And then I watched it again a few years ago, and I was like, this is like a visual pre-workout. This is insane. And then I watched it for this, and I was like, okay.
All right. That's a movie that I've watched.
This is 300. This is one of the most movie... Anyways.
Yeah, this is one of the most movies you will ever watch in your life.
Released in 2006, you know, the golden years.
Yeah, a lot of good cinema coming out in
Hollywood.
06.
Oh, man.
You're only 2 years away from Batman Begins 06. You could make it. It's okay.
No, no. Batman Begins was...
Oh, it was 05, wasn't it? Yeah.
Dark Knight is 2008.
Right.
You're only two years away from the best movie...
Maybe the best superhero movie ever, for sure.
I'm killing it with these pauses today.
It's so good.
This one is not as great, but
No.
it's not bad. It's got a 7.6 on IMDb, 61% credit score, and 89% audience score.
This is just
Rotten
proof the
Tomatoes.
critics are into some weird crap, kids.
61%. Come on. What did you expect from 300?
I don't know. Honestly, I'm a little offended that the critic rating isn't lower, because this feels like a movie where the critic rating should be on the floor, right? Like, I'm upset at the critics. Do your damn job. All right.
But at the same time, if you go into this and you go, this is not Good Will Hunting. I didn't feel moved by this. It's like, okay, you weren't supposed to, jackass. What did you expect? Okay. We need a bunch of bikers. We need a bunch of bodybuilders. We need a bunch of MMA fighters, and let's read their reviews, because that's the target audience here.
And we're gonna airbrush the abs on the bikers, but that's neither here nor there.
That is a myth, sir.
Is it?
I don't know about the airbrushing, but a lot of people say that the abs are CGI, and that's actually a myth.
I know that the abs on the guys with lines are not CGI, because you can see it like when they talk. But
speaking of which, man, we got some recognizable names in here.
We do.
We got Gerald Butler, that guy from 300.
Yeah, and Olympus Has Fallen.
He starred in the titular role of Dracula 2000 and Attila, which is a miniseries about Attila the Hun. And then Phantom of the Opera. He played the Phantom in Phantom of the Opera from 2004. Nothing huge, nothing big, but he was in star roles in all of those. He was not a nobody, but this is definitely the movie he is most known for, even to this day. Some, good God, 18 years later? 18 years later.
18.
Holy cow.
Dude. We're old, dude.
He followed this up with P.S. I Love You, which I know is one of your Friday night go-tos. Vincent Reagan plays Captain. He's the Spartan soldier whose son is also in the army. He also played... Go ahead, Kyle. Help me out here. Uterus. He played Uterus in Troy. Uterus, right?
He's Achilles' second-hand man, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't remember his name. I know it's not Uterus.
Eudorus.
Eudorus, probably.
Uterus. Okay.
Sure.
Ironically, some of the weapons from Troy, released in 2004, was reused for this movie to help with budget costs.
Oh.
You have a young Michael Fassbender as
Yeah.
Stelios, something like
The
that.
the long-haired warrior. There's always one.
Yeah. And then you have David Winham, best known for Faramir from The Lord of the Rings.
He is also the goofy monk in Van Helsing, which is it's really funny.
Yes, he is. Quite the opposite character he plays here.
I'm fairly certain he wears a prosthetic nose in Lord of the Rings. I don't know what it is. I feel like he's Beaky as Faramir, you know?
I don't know.
That actor,
maybe he just got a nose job because the Lord of the Rings was shot first.
That's true. It was, so it's possible that he did. And it's not bad. It's just like his nose is noticeably longer in Lord of the Rings than it is.
Does this count as film theory?
I don't know. maybe theoretically it does.
Well, he's going to have 2 roles in this. He's going to play Dilios, and he's also going to be our narrator.
Yes.
And through him, we are going to be told this tale. You're going to realize, actually, you kind of realize it from the start, and then it just becomes more apparent as it goes on that we are being told a story, kind of like around a campfire. This is meant to inspire.
I feel like we can't leave out Queen Cersei Lannister herself as Queen Gorgo of Sparta.
Queen Gorgo, man, I did not think I could see her in anything and like her after watching her be Cersei. She did a great job as Cersei. She did such a good job that I hated her the entire time.
Her and Jack Gleason, I think is his name, the guy who plays Joffrey. Yeah. You're like, I hate these people.
Yeah, but no, she did great in this one, and she actually is fairly likable. She has some good lines in here.
She's got some grit.
This is directed by Zack Snyder, who had previously directed the Dawn of the Dead remake in 2004. A lot of people really like it. I'm not a huge fan, but that's, it's everybody's opinion. And he had really only directed like music videos prior to that. So there is a movie called The 300 Spartans from 1962.
Yeah, I saw that while I was researching this movie, and I was like, okay, I'm probably going to have to watch that someday.
One of these days, yeah.
Yeah.
We'll do a deep cut later on.
A deep fake.
A deep fake. So that kind of influenced him and inspired him to do this. This is based on a Frank Miller graphic novel, same author and illustrator of Sin City, which came out in 2005, I think. So Warner Brothers was hoping for a similar box office success compared to Sin City, which made $74 million. And we're surprised when this movie made over, do you know how much, Kyle?
Ooh, 100 mil. I'm going to guess over 100 mil.
And then double it. This movie made over $200 million.
Bro, you guys were just really starved in 06, weren't you?
I'm telling you, man.
Man.
The peak of American culture right there.
I'm going to rag on this movie a lot, not because it's bad, not because I don't like it, but because it's like Highlander. You have to rag on it. It's required.
Funny enough, this was the highest grossing R-rated movie for an entire decade until in 2016, and it was beat by, do you know?
Oh, okay, R-rated movie, 2016.
Yep.
I don't. Lay it on me.
Deadpool.
Oh my God! Yeah.
Yep.
I didn't know. I forgot Deadpool's that old. Oh God, Dustin, we're old, man.
We're old.
We're so
it's official.
Old. I watched that for the first time right after senior year of high school.
Yeah.
In your apartment on that futon with the bar across it.
That was the first time? That was I didn't know that was your first time.
And I was
Deadpool.
18, and I was relatively new to R-rated movies. Well, I wasn't new to R-rated movies. I was new to 21st century R-rated movies.
Right.
Like, I thought R-rated was like Young Guns, you know? And Braveheart. And so I watched Deadpool, and there's so much sex. And I'm like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
This is what R-rated is.
the whole year, all the holidays are incorporated into one set scene.
I was vaguely uncomfortable, not because the sex made me uncomfortable, but because I was like, I am watching this with my 2 guy friends in a very small apartment. Please tell me we shoot people soon.
Can we get back to the violence? Well, we have plenty of that here. We have plenty of violence here to go around. Originally, this was supposed to be slated as a PG-13 movie, but Zack Snyder refused.
PG-13.
Yeah. Don't think you'd make $200 million off of that. So, Kyle, kind of a preface before we start getting into you tearing apart how historically inaccurate this is.
Yes.
Both Zack Snyder and Frank Miller have openly stated that they were not concerned with historical accuracy.
Yeah, which I mean is fair because it's a graphic novel and a movie based off a graphic novel.
Right.
So I think part of the reason the movie works as well as it does is because it just doesn't care. It's like, nah.
And Snyder in particular stated the sense of this film was told through the story to inspire, which you'll see at the end of it.
Yeah.
Delios would not allow the truth to slow down the narrative. I like the way that they worded that, truth to slow down the narrative.
Yeah, I do think it also helps that it's being narrated the whole time
Yeah.
because, you're like, okay, everybody influences stories when you're trying to inspire people, especially.
All right. Now, I consider myself fairly well versed in like physical fitness and things along those lines. So, it's stated that in order to get into shape, the entire principal cast underwent a rigorous 8-week training regime, organized by record-holding professional mountain climber Mark Twight. And Gerald Butler said the training was the most difficult thing he's ever done in his life. 8 weeks, I don't care how hard you work, is not long enough to get into shape.
No, but I think the key is most of those guys were in shape. It's Hollywood shape, right?
Yes.
Like they all are in shape anyway. It's like Chris Hemsworth is always crazy jacked, but when he has to play Thor, he just spends 8 weeks getting insanely, inhumanly jacked.
He does an 8-week cycle. I mean, he trains really hard for 8 weeks.
Yeah.
I'm just kidding. No, obviously, I would not be one bit surprised if some performance-enhancing drugs was not implemented in this. But
and to be fair, when your base is better than like 85% of the human race, anyway.
Yeah. I'm not knocking how hard these guys worked, but
no.
Gerald Butler said I think he said 6 months is what it took him to prepare for this role.
Yeah.
Much more reasonable. I just think it's funny that they're like, we went through a really hard 8-week program. Like, okay, you may have lost like 20 pounds. Like,
honestly, with the mountain climbing part of it, I wouldn't be surprised if it was 8 weeks to get in physical shape for the fights because they probably cast people that were already in great physical shape.
Yeah.
Anyway, and they're like, cool, you're muscly. Now you're going to be flexible and muscly. Have fun.
Also, a fun fact, Gerald Butler's stunt double, I forget his name, forgive me, is the father at the very beginning, like when Leonidas is growing up. His father is Gerald Butler's stunt double.
That's cool.
Okay, buddy, let's get into this movie, man.
Let's do it.
Stereotypical desert music to start us off. Yeah. Did you say it was 2006?
Yes.
Every time. Why? Scorpion King, The Mummy, they all do it, man. If we see sand, we have the same music.
I'm just happy it's not.
That's true. No Oscar nominations for the soundtrack.
Wow, shocker.
Fun fact, the composer of the soundtrack was nearly sued for stealing pieces of a score by Elliot Goldenthal for 1999's Titus. So much so that Warner Brothers had to acknowledge on their website that the score was taken without their approval.
Oh my god. Yeah, we just stole a score, guys. Sorry.
That's not your music. That's our music. Communist music starts playing.
To music, SB music, my man.
Yeah. Okay. Let's get started here, man. First question. And it's brought up early on that Spartans are going to discard misshapen, small, weak-looking babies. Is this true?
I can't promise that all of Sparta did, but I know that the class that raised the Spartan warriors did. Yeah. If you were like a well-to-do farmer or up, yeah, you're getting rid of those disfigured kids. You just are.
Now, the reason they're doing this is because Spartan males are supposed to only have one job, right? Where did this idea come from? Where does this get its start?
I mean, it's a romanticization of actual Spartan ideals. So Spartan men had 3 jobs. Generally speaking, if you weren't part of the aristocracy, your job as a Spartan middle class citizen who would make up the bulk of the Spartan army was to be a good enough farmer to raise successful crops year in and year out, be a good enough father and husband to produce a lot of healthy children and raise them well, and then to be a crazy warrior. Okay. So Spartans' professions are not only warfare, but they're way more warfare focused than most of the other Greek city-states.
Okay. And so this process of becoming a soldier or a Spartan warrior, according to the movie, is going to kind of start around age 7. Is that about right? Is there kind of this rite of passage that young men have to go through?
Instead of rite of passage, think like Navy SEAL training for 7-year-olds. If you are 7, you are put in the agoge, which is like Spartan hell on wheels military training and like soul breaking, back breaking training. And from the age of 7 to, I believe, the age of 18, somewhere in there, you go through 3 different levels of this combat training.
3 levels, huh?
And it's not just combat training. It's things like they purposely underfeed you so that you learn how to steal without being caught. You have to be resourceful. You have to be self-sufficient. So you have to steal enough food if you don't want to be like low-key starving to death. But if we catch you, we're going to beat your ass because you need to be a wily enough opponent to use strategy to not get caught. They have a massive slave class in Sparta, and some historians think it's hyperbole, some think it's truth. There is a rumor fact about Sparta that to graduate the agoge, you had to kill one of the slave class and not get caught. We're not entirely sure if that was true, but even if it's only like a metaphor, it still emphasizes how brutal this training was.
So in the movie, he has to kill this wolf, and he comes back with its skin. Is that kind of the equivalent here?
Yeah, it's possible. I think the important thing about the killing the slave narrative, whether it's factual or not, and we're probably not gonna know because most of the stuff we get from ancient Greece is written by guys who have a really big stake in making Greece seem as like off the chains as humanly possible. There would definitely be a final rite of passage. In other warrior cultures, it's killing a bear or killing a wolf. Or if it's Native Americans, it's counting coup, especially in the plains. You have to hit an enemy with a dull stick and not get killed and knock 3 of them off their horse. So there would have been something. And a wolf's as good as anything else.
I do realize a small flaw in this way of thinking. So you have trained this little runt for 11 years, and then you're going to send him off to go maybe get killed by a wolf. It just seems like a waste of resources.
He slips on ice and he gets killed by a wolf.
Right, like, okay.
Yeah. Well, also think about how big of a waste of resources it is so Sparta holds like this pretty large by Greek standards area of territory in the very southern part of the Greek peninsula. But the only people who can be hoplites in the Spartan army come from Sparta itself, which is the city of Sparta and then a couple offshoot villages. And they can only be people who can afford their own armor because that's how Greek soldiering works back in the day. So you're a relatively low population city-state in the scheme of things. And unlike the other city-states, you don't allow just anybody who can afford armor to be a hoplite. You have to be of a certain social class and be able to afford your armor. So we think that part of the reason they had such a highly trained military was because it was a directly inverse relationship with the fact that they were far more exclusive over who could be in it than some of their enemies.
Okay. So this boy that we've watched from age 7 who's torn away from his mother, who's grown to be this great warrior. This is going to be our King Leonidas. He is going
Royal
to be,
music plays.
He's going to be our head badass here. Man, I like the pacing of this movie. This is my type of pacing here.
Oh, it gets going, man.
We're about 5 minutes in, and we're going to get to the conflict here.
And now the demonic Eastern music plays as the ebony black man rides up on the giant black horse with his coat flying behind him.
Fun fact here, the 3 guys, including the messenger, riding up on their horse was the only shot in the movie that wasn't on a green screen.
Oh my! The only shot in the
only shot.
Bro, it's like filming the Star Wars prequels in here. Jeez.
Yeah. So the messenger's going to say, "What makes this woman think she can speak among men?" And she replies, "Because only Spartan women give birth to real men."
Which is awesome because in Sparta, women, it was the only Greek city-state that we know of that allowed women to have property rights. And they weren't formally part of politics, but they were expected by society to be outspoken and bold in their opinions, and men listened.
Which is interesting because if you think about it, so much of the population is at least attempting to be part of the Spartan army. They're trying to be a warrior, so a lot of jobs are going to be open for women,
or at least a lot of like influence is open for women in the sense that we support this borderline unsustainable system of super highly trained warriors, which is great. give us our dues, that we are, it's just an interesting dynamic because Sparta is like, I don't know, Sparta is the weirdly oppressive and weirdly not at the same time. Just kind of depends on what factor you're talking about.
Yeah. So the Persian messenger, is going to spell out the subtle declaration of impending war from
Earth and
King
water.
God Xerxes.
Yes, God King Xerxes.
God King, or is it King God? Is it God King?
God King.
God King sounds better anyways. Okay. So basically he says, submit and we will not annihilate you like we have every other king that we have encountered before you. Also, look at these skulls of these kings that we've already conquered.
Dude, that badass move of the century right there. Rear up on your giant horse and just throw the skulls of conquered kings down.
That is a dope move. So this pit, okay, so we know what's going to happen. Okay,
right,
Leonidas is going to say the famous line, which I have heard in interviews he did so over the top as a joke, and that's the one that they stuck with. I can't imagine it any other way though. The most famous 3-worded line from a movie in the 2000s. This is Sparta.
Sparta. Kick.
Front kick.
Slaughter,
straight
slaughter,
to the pit. Is this pit real?
No.
This isn't something that they had in Sparta?
No, not even
It'd be
a little
really
bit.
cool though.
It would be, but can you imagine the disease? Like, who's gonna get how many messengers do we kill, right?
Yeah.
Do we what? And then they decompose in this pit. God, the stench would just be bad. And that's by ancient standards, where everybody craps in the street. So yeah.
Maybe that's what it was. It was just a big crap hole.
Maybe, I don't know. We didn't hear a as they fell, but yes, there was no murder hole in the middle of Sparta. Sorry.
Well, my rating for this movie just went down.
Yeah. I wish that was the most inaccurate part of this movie, but we'll get there.
That wasn't the most inaccurate part of the movie?
Oh, God, no, but continue.
All right. Leonidas is going to go to the Effers.
I think it's Ephers.
All right. I like Effers.
And that's who they were. Like, they were priests.
Okay.
They were not inbred smallpox having perverts, from what we can tell, but they were priests.
Were they corrupt?
Probably not. Okay, so the weird thing about this movie that I'll just preface now so that we don't have to keep discussing it throughout the podcast. Sparta is not opposed to war with Persia at any point. Nobody in Sparta is opposed. They're all offended. Persia also has already invaded the Greek peninsula 10 years earlier at Marathon, and a coalition led by Athens drives them back into the sea. So
okay, hold on. Pause for just a second, because I was kind of confused by this. They say like snuff out tiny Greece. Sparta is it like a state in Greece?
Yeah. So Greece is. So the thing about movies that talk about this period is they really like to act like there was this idea of a unified Greece. There wasn't. There was an idea of Greek people.
Okay.
Like Greeks identified as Greek, but Greece, quote unquote, is I think literally hundreds, if not high dozens, of city-states. Some of the city-states are bigger than others. So the big players at the time of the second Persian invasion, Athens, Sparta, Corinth, and Thebes, and a couple others. And Thebes actually fights for Persia because it doesn't like the other 3 or 4 big powers.
Those bastards.
But so to put it into perspective, Persia at its height, which is roughly now 5.5 million square miles.
Okay.
So biggest known empire in history up to this point in time.
And that's Persia? That's how big Persia has gotten?
That's how big the Persian Empire is right now when it's threatening Sparta. Greece as a peninsula, all of the Greek city-states, 50,000 square miles.
Woo! That's a big difference.
All of Greece combined is 1/100th the size of the Persian Empire.
Yikes.
Geographically. Now, the thing about Persia is like a lot of big empires, there's lots and lots of it that doesn't have anybody in it, strictly speaking, but still. Like, population-wise, you're still probably talking like easily 50 to 1, if not more.
Let's come back to this point later on, because I have a question about the cultures, but we're going to keep moving forward for the time being.
Sure.
So, in the movie, the Ephers are going to tell them that war cannot be fought during the Tarnia, which is a sacred festival. Not really understanding or caring that war is already coming. It doesn't matter. War's coming. We're either going to fight or we're going to be conquered immediately. So Leonidas plans to rebuild the Phocian Wall. Is that right?
Yes.
Is this a real geographical location?
Yeah, from what we can tell, so it's a fortification. So a little explanation has to go into this. If you Google the Thermopylae Pass today, it doesn't look like somewhere you can defend. But 2,400 years ago, the ocean was something like 2 miles closer.
Nice.
Like the ocean was right up against the cliffs. Yeah. So to get through, you had to go through this, not quite as narrow as portrayed in the movie, but probably like, I don't know, 75 yards wide, 50 yards wide, maybe further, pass in the mountain ranges to get anywhere in that part of the peninsula. So before this point, the Phocians, and Phocia is another Greek city-state that's kind of on the decline at this point. When they were a little more powerful, they had built a wall in case they needed to defend the pass. And so Leonidas, even in real life, from what we can tell, rebuilds this fortification. And what it does is it kind of it makes the pass even narrower, right? Okay. Like it channels it into a funnel.
So we're going to see the first time we kind of encounter the Persians is before the first battle. Their ships are going to crash coming in. So if you're saying this wall blocks the only entrance into the peninsula, and if for some reason their ships cannot pass through, they have to do it by land.
Yes, exactly.
Do we have any reason why, or does it just help the story that these Persian ships could not, they just were sinking all of a sudden?
So in the movie, it's a storm. Yeah. I can't remember if in real life there's also a storm, although it's funny how many times invasions get screwed over by bad weather in human history. I do know that in real life there is a Greek coalition fleet that is actively fighting the Persian fleet at the same time as Thermopylae. And so in real life, there is a sizable amount of Greek boats with very angry guys in it that are off the coast fighting at literally the same time that the Battle of Thermopylae is happening.
Okay.
Because Thermopylae in real life is a coalition defense. It's not just Sparta. Greece has already started to form bonds against Persia. And so all the men that can get there rush to the pass and send their fleet at the same time to try to make a land and sea wall against the bigger Persian army and navy.
So the Spartans were not fighting by themselves. They also had comrades in the sea.
Yeah, in real life, even on land, 300 is more like 7,000.
Nah.
Which compared to what we think is probably 200,000 Persians is not very many people. Okay. So it's still incredible. It's just slightly less incredible than in the movie.
All right, so the Ephors, using an oracle, which is code for naked redheaded girl. Let's not go any farther into that. No. Tell Leonidas that he will fail and Sparta will fall. Then it was revealed that the Ephors have betrayed him and are being paid by the Persians, which does what to the plot?
Probably nothing. I think the level of Persian corruption in Sparta doesn't make any sense in this movie because you're creating, you already have one drama, right? You don't need another one, if that makes sense.
So what I'm thinking is
I like the one corrupt dude. I like the one corrupt politician because that's a movie staple. I don't fully understand. If Leonidas is this super strong personality, how is everybody around him in the Persians' pocket? How do we not have more faith in our king than that, you know?
Not only that, also I think because he has a larger army in Sparta waiting. Yeah. And he can only take these men who are his personal guard. So he's taking the best of the best. But what's the real reason why only, you said it's 7,000, but is it only 300 Spartans or is it 7,000 Spartans?
Yeah, so it's 300 Spartans. You know what? This is as good of a reason to segue as any.
Let's do it.
So, yeah, in real life, it's actually brilliant how the novel and then this movie kind of warp fiction and real life into this believable narrative. So in the movie, there's that festival that they can't undo. In real life, the Ephors tell Leonidas that he should fight because that is the Spartan way. And the Spartan Congress is not the right word. The Spartan group,
Council?
Yeah, Spartan Council also are we should fight. The problem, though, is that Sparta is not well liked by the other allies in the coalition. Sparta owns what it owns because about 100 years earlier, they had conquered the entire area and enslaved everybody they conquered. They don't play well with others. Everybody's vaguely afraid of them because they have this really highly trained anvil of an army. And they are both in the middle of a very important festival that is recognized not just in their city-state as a peaceful festival, and they are also hosting, they're not hosting, but they're, at the time, the Olympic Games were also supposed to be going on. And
No
there is
way.
an,
Seriously?
Yes, yeah. And there's an Olympic Games piece that all of Greece honors by threat of being teamed up at by like the other 57 like city-states if you decide
Play
to go
or
rogue.
we will all fight you.
Well, you don't have to play, but be peaceful or you're at war with all of us.
Oh,
And
I got you. Okay.
Yeah, and so they're really, really afraid that if they mobilize Sparta, not everybody's going to understand why or believe the
Okay.
why. So they tell Leonidas, by Spartan law, they can't mobilize troops during the Olympic peace or the Comeni. And Sparta is held together by this unwritten but deeply believed in constitution that strictly limits the powers of the council and the king and the ephors, and they cannot veto each other. It's not like modern governments. They have to listen to one another upon pain of being overthrown. So Leonidas is one of two kings of Sparta. One king stays behind to muster the troops for when they can march. Leonidas is the older, more experienced king. He's like 60 at this point.
He's the more jacked king.
Well, yeah, he's a guy who lived to 60 in 480 BC. So clearly the dude's a force of nature, and is fit enough to lead his army into battle. He musters his royal guard, so it is actually his royal guard of 300 men, and he marches to the Hot Gates or Thermopylae.
Yeah,
and he collects men along the way. And he, though Sparta is not liked, Leonidas, especially of the two kings, is very respected as a leader and as a ruler. So other city-states flock to his banner. They send whatever men they can, and by the time he gets to Thermopylae, there's 7,000 Greeks that are alamoed in this pass. Like, they know what's at stake. They know they have to hold the line, and his 300 men are the vanguard of that 7,000, and he is the leader of the coalition in the Hot Gates, which is honestly so much cooler than just his 300 men. Like, the fact that this guy is such a personality and such a force of nature that just by word of mouth and him marching, he gathers a force of thousands to oppose a Persian army that still outnumbers them like 30-1 almost, is crazy.
I would love to see more of an extended cut of this where it shows if they did show like him kind of campaigning on his way to the wall to block this pass. And
they imply and they show that there are other Greeks there. It's Acadians, in the movie. They're very, very disregarded by Leonidas and the Spartans, and it's overblown. Greek soldiers are Greek soldiers. Hoplites fight. That's what they do. Spartans are just a little bit better at it. Think like Army Rangers versus Army soldiers. Like Army Rangers are better, but soldiers can still fight. Same idea. And so
it's like me versus me when I'm drunk.
Yeah, maybe like me versus me when I lifted weights and could jog more than a quarter mile, you know? Anyway.
I do have one question real quick. Did the Persians know about this time of peace, this festival, and was that used or implemented purposefully?
You know, that's a really good question because we don't know.
Okay.
Because Victor's write the history, especially back then. And the thing is, the Greek city-states, via Alexander the Great and then Rome, their records last a lot longer than the Persian Empire does. And a lot of the Persian Empire's records are in the Library of Alexandria and other places that just get destroyed as history goes on. So we're not super aware of the internal machinations of Xerxes. We know that his father's defeated a decade before. We know that due to internal stuff and just a lack of needing to, it takes him 10 years to consolidate the army to invade Greece. We also know that by running scientific, like this is how much the water source and the food source back then could support, he kind of empties the army. Like he leaves enough in his empire to rule, but this is like the right hook of the Persian Empire is what he sends to Thermopylae. So ancient sources try to tell us it's 1 million people. That's bullcrap. It's literally physically impossible. There weren't that many. You couldn't pay that many soldiers back then. Rome at its peak has like 350,000.
Okay.
To give you an idea.
Yeah.
So this, almost 700, 600 years before the peak of the Roman Empire, Xerxes musters somewhere between 175 and about 325,000 soldiers and marches them across the Bosphorus Strait in Turkey, sails them across that strait, and then marches up through Macedonia and down through the mountains to take on this itty bitty speck called Sparta and Athens and
Wow.
Corinth. So we don't know, but it wouldn't surprise us because there are Greeks that live in Persia at this time.
Yeah.
There's even a disgraced Spartan king who ruled right before Leonidas, who gets kicked out for being a coward in battle, that actually is part of the Persian army at this point. So it's very, very possible that Greek insiders are like, hey, dude, if you can time it right, and if you can march your army here, you could take advantage of this. The problem is, back then, that would have been like throwing a dart at a newspaper and hoping it hits the right job.
Never
like you could
would've known.
try, but you don't have modern transportation.
Right.
So you can give it a shot and hope that you show up, but it's more of a coincidence than it is a strategy.
No Google Maps at that time.
Right.
All right, man. Sorry, I just wanted to get that out real fast.
No, you're good. So in the movie, it's Leonidas and his 300 and what is probably probably 700 other people, because they mentioned that it's more Acadians than there are Spartans.
Yeah,
and
this is like I brought more soldiers than you.
Yeah, and there's this really awesome and super inaccurate but cool scene where the Acadians are like, well, I'm a potter, I'm a sculptor, and he goes, Spartans, what is your profession? And they go, oh. And he goes, see, I brought more soldiers than you did. So the 300 Spartans hold the pass, and the however many Acadians hold the rear guard. In real life, Leonidas sends 1,000 men from one of the city-states. I think they are Acadians, actually. I think he sends 1,000 Acadians to guard the pass, and he and his men and the other 5,700 that are left form a giant freaking phalanx camp in the middle of the hot gates and dare the Persians to attack them.
Come at me, bro.
And in real life and in the movie, we have now arrived at the hot gates.
And the movie, we're 27 minutes in, man. This is my type of pacing. I tell you what.
We're 27 minutes in. We have so much bloodshed ahead of us.
Yeah, so Leonidas, he's going to take a little stroll to the hot gates in the movie. Just him and 300 men, essentially. The Arcadians are there, but they're kind of, exempt for most of the movie. Not technically declaring war, but clearly going to open an ancient equivalent can of whoop ass on some Persians.
Oh, yeah.
We are introducing a hunchback here.
Ephialtes.
Ephialtes.
I knew you wouldn't know how to say his name. So
Thank you so much, because I wrote it down, but I was like, all right, here we go. He's going to want to join the army, and he's not going to be allowed. He is disfigured. So since we learned earlier that they're going to disregard non-able-bodied boys, essentially as soon as they're born, his parents decided not to.
And you can see that Leonidas doesn't think this is the mercy that Ephialtes thinks it is. He's very kind to him, he honestly is. And he's willing to let Ephialtes serve because Ephialtes is jacked, even though he's a hunchback, and he has a good spear thrust. And he tests him, and he says, how high can you raise your shield?
Right.
And Ephialtes can't move his left arm because it's the arm that's hunched, and he goes thigh to neck. If you can't cover the man next to you thigh to neck, the entire shield wall falls apart.
It's a phalanx. I'm pretty sure that's what they call it.
Yeah, and he goes, I'm sorry, I can't use you.
The Arcadians are quivering, seeing that their death is inevitable. Meanwhile, the Spartans realize that though their death is likely, this will be their beautiful death. This will be what they kind of live for. The emissary to Xerxes arrives, seeing that the wall is being built by the Spartans, and they're using Persians as mortar.
They're using the scouting party that they hunted down.
There is an earthquake. The ground starts rumbling, and Captain says, an earthquake. And Leonidas says, no, Captain, battle formations. And then he's going to deliver another great line. This is where we hold them. This is where we fight. This is where they die. We're going to see the Spartans' battle strategy for the first time. It's an unmovable line of shields. So they're going to hold them. They're going to, muscle them down. You can see their feet digging into the sand. And then they're going to give them a good shove and then a jab with the spear. The first line falls, and then they're going to hit again. And they're just going to basically repeat this
until the Persian line breaks, and then they just go after them and slaughter them.
And apparently, military strategists have stated that the only way to really break this would be to send in artillery. Artillery of that time would be catapults. Catapults apparently weren't invented for another 200 years after this.
Correct.
So they're screwed.
Yeah, honestly, the only way at this time that you can break it is you have another shield wall with hopefully more shields and more spears so that you can just pummel the other one into submission.
They're gonna force the rest of the group of Persians off the edge of the cliff and into the ocean.
Mm-hmm.
Immediately following this is a swarm of arrows. It's so many that it blots out the sun, and they say, "Look, we're fighting in the shade." We're gonna have a little continuity error here.
Oh yeah.
There's two. So whenever they're covering themselves from the arrows, you see the arrows sticking into the back of their capes.
Their cloaks. Yeah.
Yeah, cloaks. And pinning them to the ground, and then whenever they stand up, all those arrows are gone.
Mm-hmm.
And also, you're gonna see Leonidas takes his sword, and in slow motion, he's gonna chop all of the arrows off, leaving only the arrowhead sticking in. And then in the next shot, there's no arrowheads.
Clean
left.
shield.
Yeah, so
shield.
A couple continuity errors there. Something to look for next time you watch this. Why the hell is Xerxes so damn tall?
I don't know. It's so in the sequel. Which is not quite as good, but it's on boats, so at least it's different. It's his backstory is that he's a normal person, and then the graphic novel, it really overemphasizes this idea of like mysticism and like living gods versus rationality and freedom, quote unquote. And God, I love Westernism. It's so cool. So we really love to claim that people were free that weren't. It's like Braveheart all over again. Anyway,
or The Patriot.
Yeah.
Did Mel Gibson write this?
He might have. I think they let him sit in. No, actually, it's too historically accurate for Mel Gibson.
Damn.
Anyway, yeah, nothing's completely made up in this. At least everything's based on something that happened.
That's fair.
And so in the second movie, basically Xerxes is a normal guy. He watches his father die in the battle for Marathon, which didn't happen, but that's a different movie that I can pick apart. And so he visits this like spiritual well, and he comes out 8 feet tall and golden.
Very nice.
In real life, obviously, dude was just a dude. Like he was just a Middle Eastern guy who ruled a giant empire.
Rodrigo Santoro. It's the guy who plays Xerxes. His voice was altered an entire octave lower in post-production. Leonidas says the world will know that free men stood against the tyrant. Sparta is kind of proto-USA, man.
No, yeah, clearly. No slave. It's not like 90% of the population were slaves.
Well, hold on. It's that, we may have had some dark history with some slavery in the past, and we have some freaking freedom, and we stand against tyranny. I'm telling you, Sparta is kind of American.
I love, honestly, I love, and it happened in like actual history too. I love this trend that humans have of my king is more of a liberal king than your king. Like you have a king facing down a king, and he's like free men, and I'm sure Xerxes is like, oh yeah. Free men who have to do everything you tell them to.
So you don't have. I'm not talking about me. I'm talking about you, jackass.
Yeah, no. You're the oppressive one.
This isn't about me.
Gestures at massive empire at my back. Well, clearly, I'm doing something right.
Okay, we see the Persian ghosts. This is the personal guard to Xerxes as they approach the wall. Yeah, the immortals. The wall of Persian bodies. And it's a trap set by the Spartans as they push the wall down onto the Persians, burying them beneath the dead bodies of their comrades.
And we quickly realize that though still not quite to the caliber of the Spartans, these immortals can slug, man. Mm-hmm. Like they are not the base troops that Xerxes sent earlier. They kill dozens of Spartans.
Well, do they kill any Spartans, or do they just kill I think they just kill Arcadians.
No, they kill several Spartans. There's like before Leonidas fights the weird mutant dude, who I'm sure we'll talk about here in a second.
I
guess they kill several of them. They still lose way more than they kill, but the point is like these troops can fight. These aren't Xerxes conscripts. Like these guys fight.
Yeah. One of the ghost masks gets knocked off, revealing a supernatural look to their faces. Supernatural meaning they are inhumanly ugly.
Yeah, and they have fangs. And this is where the movie starts to go off the rails a little bit, in the sense that apparently Persia just dabbles in like mutations and dark magic.
Yeah. So speaking of that, here comes Robert Malay. He's a former professional wrestler who was known as Kurgan when he was a wrestler. And he's gonna play what IMDb lists as uber immortal.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Yeah, giant freaky looking thing that nearly takes out Leonidas. He's gonna give him a nice little cut across the eye, which also moves if you pay attention.
Yeah, it does, left to right.
But he is gonna get him in the end. The Arcadian assist in the battle, flanking the Persian immortals and helping the Spartans win, though there are some deaths.
And they are not nearly as good at fighting as the Spartans.
There is a line here as Xerxes looks on from the mountainside. A man who fancies himself a god feels a very human chill crawl up his spine.
Such a good line.
Bro! Who wrote this?
Bro, the narrator is so good.
It's very good. It
the
really
narrator
is.
is so good.
And you're gonna realize if you haven't seen this before, this entire story is exactly what I'm saying. It's a story.
Yeah.
It's told after the events of the movie have already kind of concluded.
When you get to the end of the movie, you're like, oh, okay, that's why it's over the top.
Yep.
All right, yeah.
Yep. You mentioned earlier the Persian army is going to be what was it, 5 million or 5?
Well, okay. So the claim, Herodotus is like the Greek historian, and more we find that he's full of crap. Because he's Greek, and so like he's super Greek, and so the Greeks are just better, that's his history. But in real life, so his claim is that the Persian army was like 2 million men. In real life, we think it was more like somewhere between 150 and 300,000, which is still for the time
massive, and
like,
it covers lots of land and lots of cultures, right?
Yeah, and so there would be like soldiers from every corner of the empire, and they would be equipped differently. And the immortals, so Jerry's kind of out on the immortals. We think they existed. The thing is, they're only called the immortals by Herodotus. So there are some units in the Persian army that we think are supposed to be the immortals. They are, all empires have shock troops, right? So the Persian army would have had a core of highly trained, far better than the average conscript soldier. The reason that Herodotus calls them the immortals is because the legend is there's never less of them, is that their recruiting pool is so deep that every time they lose men in battle, when they come back, there's just the same amount.
Like a head of, what is that thing? Hydra?
Yeah, like a Hydra.
Yeah.
And so obviously they're not these like demonic crazy things. They're just people. If they existed, if the unit existed, they would have just been Xerxes shock troops. And honestly, the Battle of Thermopylae takes 3 days of hand-to-hand combat. So by day 2 or by night 1, if he had them, he'd send them.
Yeah.
Because your assumption is there's only 7,000. His immortals, if they exist, his guard as the Empire of Persia, his crack troops probably still outnumber the Greeks 2-1. Honest to God. So he's probably like, all right, conscripts didn't work. Here, there's 6,000 of you left. Here's 15,000 of my best men. Yeah. Have fun. Good luck.
They've got to be getting tired. So during this, we're going to kind of montage it here a little bit. The Persian armies consist of several races, several different backgrounds, several different approaches to combat. Please tell me armored rhinos are a real thing.
No.
Come on, Kyle. I know
sorry.
you like to be historically accurate, but you lie to me this one time.
I can't, man. Rhinos can't be used in warfare. They can't see and they can't be trained.
Damn it.
War elephants existed, but there's no evidence that the Persian Empire brought them.
I'll take it. War elephants is also cool.
But war elephants... Did you notice, though, that the elephants in 300 are like 30 feet tall?
Yes.
They look like the freaking Oliphaunts from Lord of the Rings. For Theralingus!
Yes, so they're going to use animals, magicians. They're going to start executing generals out of frustration. In real life, what's happening at this point? Is he just sending wave after wave to tire them out and eventually they'll die? So
in real life, you have 30 times the amount of men who oppose you, right? And so what it is they're there for 7 days. The first 4 days, they stare at each other, and Xerxes is waiting for these crazy Greeks to back down because he's convinced that if they just sit there and crap themselves long enough at the size of his army, they'll back off. They don't. By day 4, Xerxes is like, I gotta do something. I can't just stand here. My army's gonna starve to death, because that's how big armies work back then. Is you have to move. You have to keep moving. So he decides to attack. I'm sure expecting to run over these guys like a tidal wave. Instead, Eastern light troops, because you're fighting in hotter climates. So base Persian like arms and armor is probably some sort of like light helmet, a wicker shield, a spear, and like light linen and leather clothes, because in the desert, it's more important to not die a heat stroke and to be fast than it is to stand there and select hits. It's 2 different types of warfare. His men run into 7,000 man phalanx shield wall of at least moderately trained hoplites who from shin to forehead are covered in bronze armor, have 3-foot wide shields and 8-foot long spears.
Nice.
They hit the ancient equivalent of an M1 Abrams tank with a BB gun.
They tank.
Because Greek warfare is you go shoulder to shoulder, you put your shield into the other guy's chest or his shield, and who's the baddest of them all. Like that's what you figure out in the shield wall. It's just two very different types of warfare. So by day 2, Xerxes is like, what the actual hell? Like
we should be winning by now,
and you
right?
can't get around them because it's a mountain pass.
Yeah.
And so obviously the Greeks are taking casualties, but one thing we do know is when linen and wicker and light infantry hit heavy infantry in an entrenched position, casualties are crazy disproportionate.
Right.
They just are. So we can assume by day 2, if the Greeks have lost 100 men or 200 men, the Persians have probably lost 600 or 700.
Okay.
Would be my guess.
So they're losing very much a disproportionate amount.
So you're losing enough that you can overpower these guys. But by day 2 of combat, Xerxes is probably thinking, oh my God, like, am I going to have enough morale left? It's not a matter of numbers. Are my men going to follow me into Greece if I can't overcome 7,000 and there might be 50,000 of them waiting for me once I get through this pass? So it's more of a morale problem than it ever is a numbers problem. But at some point, it's like the Alamo. If the Alamo had held out for 4 more days, would Santa Anna have been able to take it? You know? Like,
I don't know. I don't remember.
Me neither. I don't remember the Alamo.
All right. Hey. Moving on. Speaking of loss, we are going to get a pretty significant Spartan loss here. Astenos, my son, and in the blink of an eye, Captain's son is beheaded right before him. He is going to be going on a tear-filled massacre, and understandably will be inconsolable for the rest of the movie.
Yeah. One thing I do need to interject while we're talking about the son being decapitated. So this movie goes from very accurate combat-wise to very not in like blinks of an eye. The one thing the Greeks would not have done is you can't go solo hero mode. You're not trained to do that. You have swords, and the Spartans probably could have a little bit, but if you're fighting an army that big, you never break formation.
Right.
Like you will not do it. So I'm sure when the Persians broke, they followed them for a little bit in that giant intimidating shield wall and just killed as many as they could. But this thing that the movie does where the Spartans stand in the line for about 3 seconds, kill about 100 Persians, and then just go ape on them. If they'd have done that, they'd have all died in the first 30 minutes. Because there's, Xerxes is sending 3,000 men, 5,000 men at a time to fight 300. Yeah. Like in the movie, if the movie was at all realistic, you break rank, 45 seconds later, you're all dead. That's just how it is. There's 10 of them to every one of you. You can't fight 10 people at once.
Right, not because it's skill.
And they're not going to stand there and square off one-on-one. Like, that's not a thing. So,
we're going to sidestep here. Xerxes is going to coach Ephialtes into
who was real,
helping him out.
By the way, from what we can tell.
Oh, really? Okay.
He wasn't a hunchback, but he was a traitor.
Okay. Was there a goat playing an instrument?
I hope not.
Or amputated, disfigured belly dancers?
I can't. People are into some weird crap, dude.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on here, man.
But I am 100% certain there was not a guy with a giant goat head playing a sitar.
But he's gonna bribe him with the one temptation few ugly dudes can resist: a room full of hot naked women.
Yeah.
Queen not yet Xerxes is going to be approached in the night by Theron.
Yeah.
With a little misogyny and a little physical intimidation.
A little bit.
He's going to convince the queen to let him sleep with her in order for him to approve that the council will send reinforcements to save her husband.
Yeah.
After the Arcadian proclaims that sorry, I'm just kind of going through. We have a few things that are basically
keep going.
Most of our movie has kind of wrapped up, and we're just going to tie the bow on a few things here.
Most of the movie is Spartans killing weirdly mutated Persians.
Yes.
There's like a dabble of politics that watch the movie, and it's not worth our time to try to explain it to you.
The Arcadian proclaims that the hunchback has betrayed the Spartans and is leading the Persians down the goat path, and that will end up surrounding them.
Yeah.
He says there is only retreat, surrender, or death, and Leonidas says that's an easy choice for us.
Spartans never retreat. Spartans never surrender.
Bad guy Theron betrays Queen Gorgo, accusing her of adultery in front of the council. Very strong, powerful, independent queen.
Ganks
Kills
him.
that son of a bitch.
Ganks him.
Stabs him right in front of the council members, and as a result of his turnabout penetration,
Whoa.
Persian coins fall to the floor, revealing that he's been a traitor all along.
And I have a fun historical fact that makes that scene even more powerful.
Yes.
Spartans were so obsessed with honor and duty, they didn't use precious metal money in their society.
Okay.
They used little iron bars because
Interesting.
you should never be tempted to hoard wealth. Your monetary thing was literally just a means to get supplies to live. So this didn't happen, obviously, but in real Sparta, if you kill the guy and a bunch of gold coins fell out of his man purse, oh my God. What?
Blasphemy.
Dishonor on you, dishonor on your family, dishonor on your freaking cow.
All right, man. The Spartans are assembled in a dome-like formation, surrounded, with only Leonidas standing unprotected. He's asked one last time to kneel. There's a flashback to the wolf in the winter cold many years ago, when he first became a soldier, when he first became a man.
And betraying everything he knows, he bends the knee. Psych!
Yeah. Stilios! He shouts.
As Michael Fassbender vaults out of the formation and cuts down the Persian general in front of him.
He spears the man making demands, and then as the Spartans start to fall around him, Leonidas launches his spear. Aiming for the very faraway Xerxes, the spear slices his cheek, spilling blood and showing that the god among gods is in fact a man.
Yes. Meanwhile, the Spartans just get eviscerated by
They get eviscerated, but Captain has the best death here. Being punctured by 3 different blades from 3 different soldiers, one of which is a lawn spear. Captain's going to pull himself further into the spear in order to kill the 3 Persian bastards.
Captain throws his shield like a discus and breaks a guy's neck. Like, Captain is blood drunk, man.
He is angry at the gods, the Persians, and everyone in between.
Mm-hmm.
Leonidas stands one last time, defiantly, painfully, crying out, "My queen, my wife, my love," before another cloud of arrows block out the sun and rain down on him. This is when we're going to see that the entire movie has been a story told by Dilios. It's the story of the 300 in order to assemble an army of thousands.
Mm-hmm.
So, did the Persians ever successfully conquer the Greeks?
No. So what happens after Thermopylae is day 3, night of day 2 of combat. Leonidas and the Greeks find out that they've been betrayed. And his men do not scatter without a fight, like in the movie. They fight almost to the last man. The rear guard does. That's how they know that the Persians are coming. Is because a messenger lets them know. 6, whatever's left of the Greeks, probably somewhere if they've been fighting for 3 days against that many numbers, if there were 7,000 of them, there's probably like 5,500, 6,000 left, be my guess. All but 1,000 of them leave. Leonidas and what's left of his Spartans and 700 of their closer allies from Thespia hold the line and volunteer to be the rear guard against the pursuing Persians. As the sun rises up on day 3 of Thermopylae, Xerxes finds himself facing 1,000 ready-to-die Greeks in a double-edged battle formation. Obviously, we don't know what happens past this point because every single man dies, but we can assume that
every single man dies.
Well, yeah. I mean, they're trapped in a pass. All the 1,000 all die. All
and
the Spartans.
No surrender.
No, they don't. They refuse.
They will not surrender. Man, damn.
They fight as long as they can to keep the Persians off of the other however many thousand are fleeing. We don't know how long the fight lasts. We can assume not very long because, unfortunately, despite what we all like to think, last stands do not last very long when you're outnumbered 300 to 1. They just don't. But they hold their ground long enough that the other Greeks escape. Meanwhile, the Greek fleet that I mentioned earlier, realizing that the land army has been defeated, fights a losing counteroffensive against the Persians and regroups at this place called Salamis. They then rally and sink most of the Persian fleet. So Xerxes takes, shortly after Thermopylae, is forced to take about half of what he's got in Greece and retreat back to Persia because he doesn't have enough boats to take them all back. He leaves one of his main, most trusted generals in charge And for a year, this guy kind of just like goes around the Greek peninsula trying to find the Greek coalition. He burns Athens, if I remember correctly, does a couple other things. Never goes to Sparta because he's kind of afraid of the Spartans after what happened at Thermopylae. A year later, Delios and his men are at Plataea, which is a real place. And it is the site of the biggest battle of the Greco-Persian War, where in the social memory of Greece, Greeks outnumbered 3-1, overcome this Persian army. In real life, it's about 70,000 Greeks, which is a lot considering the sheer amount of city-states that you would have had to pull for that. Like every Greek man that can bear a shield shows up to Plataea. They square off against probably 100,000 Persians, give or take. So they're outnumbered, but not nearly as badly.
Not 3-1.
Not 3-1. And they break the back of the Persian army. They kill way, 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 way more than they take casualties, and Persia never threatens Greece again.
Really? So that kind of ends the Greco-Persian War.
Well, you have now had 2 Persian expeditionary forces defeated by Greek armies within a decade of each other.
Hell yeah.
It's not worth it. There's just not that much wealth in Greece.
All right, man. You know what time it is.
Biggest dope.
It's bit as dope, bit as nope.
Sweet.
All right. Do you want to start or do you want me to start?
Oh, man. You can start. I'm interested to hear what your biggest dope and biggest nope are.
I think they're pretty predictable. Okay, you ready? Set, go. Biggest dope. The fight scenes. All of them. From start to finish. I love it. I would also say tie all the badass lines that I want to get like either put up on the wall in the gym or a t-shirt of. Because like there's just so many great lines in this. But yeah, the fight scenes obviously are incredible. Biggest nope by 100,000 times is the stupid color grading that they did in 2000s movies where night is blue and day is orange, and I freaking hate it. Okay, continue.
All right, so my biggest dope, the line warfare, the hoplite line warfare at the beginning of the first fight, freaking chef's kiss. Like, that's exactly what it would have looked like. Biggest nope is a tie. It's either the complete lack of body armor on any of the Greeks, which is complete and utter crap, and really makes the Persians look like worse fighters than they are, or the crazy amount of mysticism applied to the Persian Empire, like mutants and crazy crap.
And goats playing instruments?
Yeah, and things like guys with, like, chainsaw hands. Like, dude, come on now. I've never read the graphic novel, to be fair, so it's possible that it's a perfect interpretation of it. At some point, though, I get the mysticism. I do. It's so mystical, it's, like, offensive, though. You know? I'm like, if I was Middle Eastern, I'd be a little pissed off by this. like, Persia did not have, like, inbred crazy fat guys with, like, sawfish blades sewn into their hands. Come on now.
I do but at the same time, like we said, it's a story. And damn it, you got to have some good villains.
I like the mysticism of the immortals, not the giant immortal. I think that's stupid. But that's
a real man. They didn't make him, but like he's
I'm not
huge.
meaning his size. I'm meaning the fact that he has like cysts all over his body and like a second heart and, you know, fangs. He's kind of weird. I like the little parts of it. I like the immortals. I like Xerxes being a god because it's a story, right? Yeah. I just think at some point it's we're not, your viewers aren't Greek people from like 480 BC. We're aware of what humans look like. Come on, man. Like, you cut your losses. Case in point, war rhinos and war elephants, fine. Weird people with cow heads throwing or the people with the weird finger blades, that's stretching it. Okay? Like, come on.
Yeah. No, I can see that.
You know what I mean?
You gotta know where to draw the line in the sand.
It's just a little too much. It takes you too far out of it. That's too
okay,
much.
Man. I want to hear your rating, and I want to hear what your favorite line from this movie is.
Ooh, okay. Oh man. All right. My rating, enjoyment factor wise.
Yeah.
Okay, as an adult, I'm gonna have to give it like a 6.5 enjoyment factor wise.
Yeah.
It's fine. I'd watch it. I'm probably not gonna watch it again.
That's what I gave it. And you know what? I would watch it again, but I will say that like I watched it a few years ago and I did enjoy it more.
I'd watch it again in the sense that I'd have it on, but I wouldn't sit down and watch it.
Because you'd be too busy doing a workout during it.
No, I'd be too busy being like, oh my God, aneurysm, brain aneurysm. I think it's, for me, historically, it's so hard to grade. Because on the one hand, it's not supposed to be historical, and I usually give movies more slack for that. On the other hand, the parts that aren't historical are complete and utter fabricated mysticism crap.
Mm-hmm.
But then on the flip side, I'm like, well, does that help the history rating? Because the things that they tried to make historically accurate are historically accurate. So I'll give it I'll give it a 5. And my justification for the 5 is because most of the stuff that completely didn't happen so painfully obviously didn't happen, even if you don't know history, that it doesn't take away from the historical parts of it. Like, it's nobody, like there weren't goat-headed people. There weren't giant mutants with like sauce. Right. Everybody knows that. So the parts that are like criminally inaccurate are so purposefully inaccurate, I don't think they take away from the historic parts of the movie. So a 5. Like, and my favorite line.
What's your favorite line?
Spartans, what is your profession?
Oh.
That's my favorite line.
That is, if you asked me a few years ago, that's probably that would have been mine as well. I am gonna say, I'm gonna go with it with a man who fancies himself a god feels a very human chill crawl up his spine.
That's a pretty good one.
That's a great line, man. That's not even like that's a badass line. Yeah, that's a badass line.
I just like the Spartans, what is your profession? Because honestly, that's probably what Spartans would say about their profession.
That's me on 2 scoops of pre-workout halfway through my deadlift session.
That's
I don't know words.
Having watched you, that's you when you hit 375, but then the human chill is when you fail 480.
The human chill is when I'm like, oh, they went my spine.
Yeah, when you go up 5 pounds and you can't move it. That's the human chill that goes up your spine. Been there, brother. I know what 135 versus 140 feels like on overhead lifts, and it's the difference between Leonidas and Ephialtes. I swear to you.
All right, man. So we got another number coming up next week.
Okay.
And it is not Stacy's number. No, Ooh. It is in fact, it is 2 numbers. They're both even, and we're going to see if I can get through another movie about race without being so damn awkward this time. Selma 2?
Selma 2 Electric Boogaloo?
Hopefully not.
Or 42, as the kids
42!
say.
42! Kyle, you always say it. You say it every time.
I do.
I'm just gonna stop trying to keep the name of the movie next week.
Well, here's the problem. We so rarely are correct when we tell them what movie is coming out the next week.
I listened to the end of each episode over the past 3 weeks and made sure I put them in the right order.
Yes,
I'm pretty sure.
That's fair. Also, I have realized that we need to tell people so that they know to look for the next episode, because there's a lot of chuckleheads out there that don't pay attention to their Spotify notifications.
All right, that's fine.
This chucklehead included.
So we're done. We're done with the whole trying to. We'll still maybe come up with something fun for it, but okay. Next week is 42. It's our number double feature. Mm-hmm. And then we're only gonna have a few. I think after that, it will only have like 7 or 8 left for the season. So
that's wild.
I know, man. We have released more episodes this season than we did last season. I
think most of them are better too. So like that's a step up.
I think so. For the first time, just this past week, one of our season 2s surpassed one of our season 1s.
Oh.
So we're keeping it moving. I will announce here, I have been working on getting some short videos together for YouTube and TikTok. If TikTok doesn't get banned by the time I figure it out. So
You've got
be
months.
on the lookout for that for the 5 days before, it gets taken down. And
3 months of quality TikTok content.
Some solid quality TikToks.
Solid.
Anyways, so we'll look forward to you listening to us next week. I was going to say, talking to you next week. I guess we would be talking to you. We just won't be talking with you.
I feel like we talk at them. Let's be real.
Talking at you sounds bad. Talking to you.
Them.
Join the conversation. We can't hear you, but feel free to talk along.
Yeah, yell at us. It's cool. Yeah.
Pause. Tell us we're stupid. Play. Yeah. We'll prove it.
That we got you. It's never in doubt.
All right. Thank y'all again for tuning in. We will see you next time.
Bye.